Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Zysol is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Zysol keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Zysol. At night.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask kindergarten teacher Miss Gibson.
Give me just one Clorox wipe and I'm ready for glitter glue, exploded lunchbox yogurt, peanut butter handprints, runny noses, picking noses, rubbing noses.
Touching noses.
Thank you, Edward. Ooh, nap mats and lockers and tissue boxes. And
Clorox
scissors.
disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe. Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Ah, Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant.
Whoa, that's refreshing.
And a 9.5 plus pH for every way you move.
I did take a spin class today.
Restoring like a pro. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised. The 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow should have smelled of gingerbread cookies, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and of course, ginger. At 8 months pregnant, Lacey was in full nesting mode. It was the morning of Christmas Eve, 2002, and there was still so much to do. She was hosting her family for Christmas at her home in Modesto, California. But by the end of the day, instead of her family enjoying her delicious, spiced cookies as she planned, they would be sick with worry as they desperately searched for her.
We'd like to thank all of you for being here and helping us trying to find our daughter. We'd just like to send a message out there that whoever has her, please, please, please let her go. Bring her back.
We love her so much. We want her back. Please, let us have her back.
Welcome back to Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. You're listening to episode 96, Murders in Modesto. Lacey Peterson loved being pregnant. From the moment she saw the 2 pink lines on that pregnancy test, she'd been ecstatic because it had been a long, hard road to conception. But then, that first doctor's appointment, hearing her baby's heartbeat, and the anticipation of her first ultrasound, where on the screen in front of her, she would see her little guy. The grainy image of her son. It's hard to express that feeling when you see your precious little one's heartbeat fluttering for the first time. Of course, her husband, Scott, had been by her side, but she couldn't help but wonder, in the back of her mind, in that secret place where she tried not to go too often. She worried that he was just going through the motions. No, she knew that couldn't be true. He was the best husband ever, and they were the perfect couple, the envy of their friends, and she was madly in love with him. She knew once their baby boy, Connor, was born, Scott would fall in love with him. At nearly 8 months into her pregnancy, Lacey was feeling it. She'd been experiencing nausea coupled with some dizzy spells. Her doctor had recently advised her to take it easy, so no more walks with Mackenzie, who was her loyal sidekick on their adventures in Dry Creek Park. But she couldn't do that to Mackenzie, their beloved golden retriever. In fact, she wondered about Mackenzie. She hoped he wouldn't be jealous of the new baby. After all, she had enough love inside of her for both Connor, Mackenzie, and of course, Scott. It felt like just yesterday she'd met Scott for the first time. It was 1994, and she was attending California Polytechnic State University. She walked in to get something to eat at the Pacific Cafe, and time seemed to stop when she locked eyes with 22-year-old Scott Peterson, who was also a student at Cal Poly. Lacey was 19 years old. She was vivacious and confident, She'd earned her family's nickname, Jabberjaws, because she loved life, meeting new people, and having fun with her friends and family. Which is all to say, she was the type of person that when she saw something she wanted, in this case, a date with that cute server Scott, she went for it, writing her name and number on a paper napkin and leaving it for him. Scott was everything she had hoped for, the man of her dreams, affectionate, attentive, loving, and a massive romantic, whisking her away on fun trips. From the beginning, she was smitten. And now it was hard to believe that they'd been married for 5 years and were about to be parents, especially because things had gotten a bit rocky when she found out a couple years ago that he didn't want to have children. Lacey, on the other hand, yearned to be a mother. She always had. But in the end, they'd worked through it. Scott had come around. But lately, he'd been working a lot. At a startup in fertilizer sales, which required long hours and a lot of time spent on the road and away from home, which is why she wanted to make this holiday season really special, without any work distractions. Everything was going to be perfect, and the morning would start off with a little Martha Stewart for inspiration.
So what are we going to do with all the egg whites, Story? Ooh, you want to make little meringues? Oh, that would be nice.
Martha Stewart was Lacey's favorite, because like Martha, Lacey loved to entertain her friends and family, and she devoted a lot of time and energy to planning her gatherings, and there was no better time to enjoy family and friends than Christmas, when the house smells like home in a way that's different than at any other time of the year. Sweet, savory, spicy, a crackling fire in the hearth. The Peterson home was a place you wanted to peel your coat off, a refuge from the cold weather, as you sink into a comfortable chair, handed a sweet eggnog concoction or maybe something bubbly, as Christmas music floats softly in the background amidst joyous and energizing conversation as the smell of something wonderful drifts from the kitchen. There's something in the oven, and you know it's going to be embellished with some delectable trimmings. At least, that was Lacey's plan for Christmas Day. On that morning, Christmas Eve, she tells Scott that she's going to finish cleaning, take the dog for a walk, and do some last-minute shopping. But after that, she was going to be baking all day, and she couldn't wait because she was planning to bring her delicious Martha-approved gingerbread cookies to her mom's place later that night for Christmas Eve dinner. Lacey's mom, Sharon, and her dad had divorced when she was just a year old. Sharon would meet her longtime partner, Ron, when Lacey was just 2.5, and he would go on to raise her as if she were his own daughter. Lacey had spoken to Sharon the night before at 8:30, confirming that she and Scott would be over there for Christmas Eve dinner. But that Christmas Eve, 2002, would not go as planned.
Lacey was just a loving, happy, generous, vivacious person. Lacey loves life. She loves people. She loves entertaining. She's happy. She and Scott are just so much in love. They're just, I think everybody envies their relationship. They're just perfect together. They have a wonderful life. They're looking forward to having their baby. They've waited a long time. They've tried for a long time to have a baby, and she finally became pregnant, and this is just the center of her world, is to have her baby and be with her husband.
At 5:15 on Christmas Eve, instead of the happy couple driving over to Sharon's as planned, Scott calls his mother-in-law, asking her if she's seen Lacey. Sharon says no. Scott explains that Lacey's car is parked in the driveway, but she's not home, and their dog was in the backyard with his leash still attached. He tells her she's missing. Sharon immediately tells Scott to call Lacey's circle of friends and to go talk to the neighbors. She knew that they lived in a really tight-knit community. A short time later, Scott calls Sharon back and tells her that no one has any idea where Lacey is. It's 6 p.m. when Sharon tells her husband Ron to call the police.
Hi, can I help you? Yes, my son-in-law called. He went playing golf this morning at 9:30. My daughter's been missing since this morning. She's 8 months pregnant. She took the dog for a walk in the park. The dog came home with just a leash on.
So the dog came back without your daughter?
Right.
Scott, Sharon, and Ron would meet Modesto police officers at the Dry Creek Park, which is really close to the Petersons' home. They call out for Lacey, worrying that maybe she'd fallen and hit her head or had a mechanical injury over rough terrain. Ron pulls his son-in-law, Scott, aside. He asks if he went golfing that day, as he'd intended. Scott says that he changed his mind that morning and had actually gone fishing instead in his boat, which was a surprise to both Sharon and Ron, who had no idea that Scott had recently bought a boat. Pretty quickly, a neighbor would come forward telling the police that at about 10:18 that morning, she had seen the Petersons' dog wandering around the neighborhood with his leash still attached. So she walked the dog to the Petersons' backyard and shut the gate. She would say that Scott's truck was gone, but that Lacey's car was still in the driveway and that there weren't any signs of activity going on inside of the home. By this point, neighbors and friends who had heard through the grapevine that Lacey was missing show up at the park to help search. Meantime, Lacey's crew of ride or dies, her very best friends from childhood, begin canvassing the neighborhood with hot-off-the-press missing persons flyers featuring a photo of a smiling, radiant 27-year-old mother-to-be, Lacey Peterson. The photo had been taken just 10 days before at a friend's Christmas party. A perfect storm culminated that night. It was Christmas Eve, which is typically a slow news day. Add to that the photo of Lacey, a young woman in her last month of pregnancy. That beautiful, innocent smile. So much was expressed in that photo that touched people's hearts. How happy she seemed, but also how vulnerable. 8 months pregnant and missing on a cold Christmas Eve. The story resonated with the community as strangers on Christmas Eve night came out to help look for a woman that they didn't even know. And the media came in droves, spreading the word that a young pregnant woman was missing. The Petersons' home was a hive of activity. Dozens of neighbors, family, and friends stood in the driveway. Police cruisers parked in front of the home, and from above a helicopter thumped, hovering around the backyard, flooding the neighborhood with wattage bright enough to illuminate the darkness. Then at the park, officers with teams of dogs were searching. That brilliant beam of light in the helicopter above assisted those in the creek bed below, wading through the water, looking for Lacey or any clues that would lead to her. That night, Detective Al Brocchini would be assigned to the case. His objective was to get to the Peterson home and find Scott. And when he did, he's surprised. He almost can't believe Scott's calm demeanor, which was a strange kind of politeness without a sense of urgency, as he answers questions about his missing pregnant wife. It was odd, though. Even though Scott was very calm and ready to answer questions, as investigators had begun talking to neighbors and relatives, they would soon learn that Scott had told different people different stories. He told Sharon's cousin and 2 neighbors that he had been golfing that day, whereas, if you'll remember, he was telling everyone else that he'd been fishing. When they searched the Petersons' home that night, looking for any signs that something untoward had happened there was no evidence of forced entry, and nothing appeared to be missing. In fact, Lacey's purse was in the closet where she left it, and inside, everything was accounted for. Detective Brocchini asked Scott about some wet towels on top of the washing machine. Scott would explain that he had taken the towels out of the washer so he could start a load with the clothes he was wearing from his fishing trip because they were all wet. Jeans, shirt, and a green pullover jacket. When they searched the back of Scott's truck, they found a big blue tarp wrapped around 3 large patio umbrellas. Scott explains that morning he decided to go fishing in the San Francisco Bay. So he drove to his rented company warehouse where he stored his boat, then drove to the Berkeley Marina and launched his boat. And he offers up a parking receipt that's time-stamped at 12:54 p.m. on Tuesday, December 24th. And in the cab of his truck, they find a sporting goods store bag that had a fishing license that he bought on December 20th, along with a lure that was bought on the same day. Scott says he fished for roughly 90 minutes and then quit for the day because it was cold and rainy. However, when Detective Brocchini found the coat that Scott had been wearing when he went fishing in the cab of his vehicle, he noticed that it wasn't wet. It was completely dry. When asked what kind of bait he used, Scott would tell them that he didn't use bait, but rather a big silver lure. And investigators would find a lure that matched that description inside of that bag, but it was still encased in its packaging. The detective asks Scott to bring them to his shop at a nearby strip mall that night. And inside the shop, they find Scott's boat, business supplies, and his work computer. And it's at this time that Detective Brocchini levels with Scott. He tells him that his job, at this point, is to clear him as a suspect. He's like, hey, you're her husband, and you appear to be the last person who had contact with Lacey. So the best thing that you can do to help find Lacey is to come down to the station for a formal interview. And Scott agrees.
Let's just go over what we already talked about so I can make some notes. Just tell me about the morning.
Scott and the detective sit across from each other. Scott appears relaxed, but he also has a detached coolness about him as he repeats his story, saying that Lacey got up first that morning at around 7 a.m., and he joined her later in the living room at around 8, and they would watch her favorite show, Martha Stewart Living.
Lacey got up and went and assumed she had some show for breakfast. Each Friday she wakes up, otherwise she gets sick because she's pregnant. I laid around in bed longer. I got up at 8 o'clock probably or so. Showered. We were watching her favorite show, Martha Stewart. Watched a little bit of that.
You didn't watch the whole thing, though?
No.
You remember what part you saw? I don't know what.
Some cooking deal. I don't know. Cookies of some sort. They're talking about what to do with meringue.
Lacey tells Scott she's going to finish cleaning the house, take their dog for a walk, and do some last-minute shopping. And Scott says he was going to go play golf at the club, but it was chilly that morning, and so he decides to go fishing.
When did you realize you were going to go fishing?
Oh, that was a morning decision. It's either go play golf at the club or go fishing.
Okay.
It seemed too cold to go play golf at the club, so just decided to, 9:30 or whatever than that. Told her what she was going to do for the day.
Okay, so she told you what she was going to do for the day?
Yeah.
And what was that?
She's going to finish cleaning up. Like I said, she's mopping the kitchen floor. Take the dog for a walk, and then she's going to the store to buy for Christmas morning breakfast tomorrow. And that was going to be involved prep. So that was her afternoon, just prepping the breakfast, and she's going to make gingerbread cookies for tonight.
At around 10 a.m., he drives to his warehouse where he stores his boat. And while he's there, he sends an email from his computer. And then around 11:30, he leaves his shop towing his boat and proceeds to drive to the Berkeley Marina, which is roughly 90 miles away. He then launches his boat, cruises around for about 90 minutes near an area by Brooks Island. Then he goes back to the marina. And before he heads home, he says he calls Lacey at around 2:15-ish. She doesn't answer, but he leaves a voicemail message for her.
Hey, beautiful. I just left a message at home. 2:15. I live in Berkeley. I won't be able to get to Villa Farms to get that basket for Papa. So I was hoping you would get this message and go on out there. I'll see you in a bit, sweetie. Love you. Bye.
Okay, so I'm not one for fads when it comes to the latest and greatest in weight loss. I've never been into the juice cleanses, soup diets, hours and hours of cardio. But what if you could take a weekly shot paired with healthy eating and exercise to lose weight and keep it off? That's not a fad. That's revolutionary. So if you've heard and seen how effective Ozempic and Wegovy are, then you probably know they're in such high demand that there is a shortage. But there's Ro. So if you've been curious but haven't made that next step to learn more about it, or if you can't get your hands on it, that's where Ro comes in. Ro makes it possible to access GLP-1s so you can start your journey ASAP. Not tomorrow or next Monday, but today. Because Ro has compounded GLP-1s in stock right now. Through Ro, you can access prescription compounded GLP-1s with the same weight loss ingredient as brand name GLP-1s at a fraction of the cost. And Ro members have support through the entire process. People who want you to be successful and show up for you on demand if you have any questions. It's a beautiful thing. You can see if you qualify from the comfort of your own home. No scheduling or commuting into a doctor's appointment. And wait for it, no waiting rooms. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in 1 to 4 days. So here's what you've got to do. Go to ro.co/mischief. Memberships start at just $99 for your first month. Medication costs are separate. That's ro.co/mischief. Go to ro.co/safety for black box warning and full safety information. Compounded medication is not required to and does not receive FDA review or approval. RX only.
This Friday, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
OMG, yes.
It's an absolute riot.
Woo!
And the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays. What deeply out of touch old person came up with that? You did. Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday in theaters this Friday. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
It's Wednesday, Addams. I see you're trying to distract yourself from your own banal thoughts. Let me help. Here's a recording thing made of my latest root canal.
Wednesday, Season 2, begins August 6th, only on Netflix.
In 1985, a white man walked into a South Georgia church and brutally murdered Harold and Thelma Swain, two pillars of the area's black community. For 15 years, the case remained unsolved. Join award-winning journalist Joshua Sharp as he helps prove the man in prison for the murders is innocent and discovers explosive evidence about another suspect that will change everything. The Man No One Believed is available now wherever books are sold.
Hey, small business owners. Boost your sales with Mood Media's small business music plans and exclusive AI-powered in-store messaging. In just a few clicks, our AI Copilot feature instantly scripts and voices professional in-store audio messages, just like this ad. That's right, this was written and voiced by AI. It's easy to start. Save 25% on annual plans with code PODCAST25 at moodmedia.ai.
Scott would get back to his shop, drop off his boat, and return home at around 4:30 that afternoon. That's when he sees that Lacey's vehicle is still there, but she's not home, and finds Mackenzie in the backyard running around with his leash still attached. At the time, he doesn't yet know that a neighbor had found Mackenzie that morning after 10 a.m. running around the street and put him back in the yard with the leash still on and shut the gate. Scott then takes off his clothes and puts them in the washing machine to start a load, with just his clothes only. After that, he sits down and eats a slice of pizza with a glass of milk. He says he then takes a shower, and when he gets out and sees that Lacey still isn't home, that's when he calls Sharon at 5:17, saying that Lacey is missing. At the end of the interview, the detective asks Scott if he'd be willing to take a polygraph test the next day, and Scott agrees. But when the time came for him to come down and take that test, he would refuse, saying that his father had advised him not to. On Christmas Day, investigators could see that the disappearance of Lacey Peterson was not the same as other missing person cases. The news media was going crazy. That image of Lacey, a beautiful young pregnant wife and her seemingly perfect life, her attractive husband in the background, searching for her along with her dedicated family, friends, and community, people just couldn't help but get drawn in right away. This became a national and international story. And another aspect of the search for Lacey was that investigators weren't controlling everything. Let's just say that Lacey's family and friends weren't sitting at home waiting for detectives to call them with updates. They were organizing. Within 2 days of her disappearance, volunteers were manning a full-fledged call center at a conference room they had rented out at a local hotel. They would create missing person flyers and posters offering a $125,000 reward for information, and volunteers would fold yellow ribbons, each with a pale blue, tiny ribbon inside at the center, a nod to Connor. 2 people were missing. Strangers would stop by the house and the hotel, offering to volunteer and to write checks for the reward effort.
You know, it's a terrible thing that something like this happened, and we want to do what we can to help. You know,
see what we can do to volunteer to help. This is bad.
Yes. It's a horrible thing that this happened, and they're having a meeting at their house so that, you know, the
that's what we're on our way
to
together. Right now.
So that's what we want to do.
By day 2, the family was getting desperate. A press conference would be held Thursday afternoon, where Lacey's parents and siblings plead for the public's help to find Lacey.
We'd like to thank all of you for being here and helping us trying to find our daughter. And we'd just like to send a message out there that whoever has her, please, please, please let her go. Bring her back.
We love her so much. We want her back. Please, let us have her back.
We want her and our grandson home safely and immediately, so please bring her back to us. Lacey was just a loving, happy, generous, vivacious person. Lacey loves life. She loves people. She loves entertaining. She's happy. She and Scott are just so much in love. They're just, I think everybody envies their relationship. They're just perfect together. They have a wonderful life. They're looking forward to having their baby. They've waited a long time. They've tried for a long time to have a baby, and she finally became pregnant, and this is just the center of her world, is to have her baby and be with her husband.
How do you guys keep up hope?
We have to keep up hope. We have to.
It's out of our hands.
A lot of prayers, a lot of friends, a lot of support from the community, the police department, everybody has just been phenomenal here. It's just been wonderful. That's how we keep up hope.
Detectives were tight-lipped about what they thought had happened to Lacey in public and with the family. But from the beginning, they were very suspicious of Scott, which was tough because Lacey's family defended him. They believed that he and Lacey were the perfect couple. Here, Lacey's mom responds to a reporter asking about Scott coming under fire from the press.
One in her life that may have wanted wrong for her.
No. Everybody liked Lacey. She didn't have enemies. Lacey was just, she's the kind of person that smile and talk to anybody. She was just a friendly, outgoing, wonderful person. She is.
Have they already decorated the nursery and
it's all done.
All ready for the baby?
The baby's room is ready and has been. They're ready for their baby, and we're ready for Lacey and her baby.
We want her home.
February 10th.
What were they planning to do for Christmas?
They were supposed to come to our house Christmas Eve, and then we were going to their house Christmas morning. And she was looking forward to it. Somebody has Lacey. Lacey would never just walk away.
No. Somebody knows where she's at.
And we want her back. Please bring her back to us.
Please.
Are you disappointed by the suspicion this week after
Of course I am.
Absolutely. Everybody's feeling different.
We need to focus on Lacey and getting Lacey back.
Yes, we want
That's the important
we want her home. And everybody's behind us. Let's get her home.
Even though the family was supporting Scott, the detectives were growing ever more suspicious, which the media was keying into as well, especially his alleged fishing trip. A reporter would ask the Modesto police chief to confirm that Scott had taken a fishing trip on the day that Lacey had gone missing. And the police chief sort of awkwardly says something to the effect that it would be wrong for him to speculate about the fishing. And the reporter hammers down, "Why can't you confirm that Scott had gone fishing?" Scott was at the press conference that day, but wouldn't speak. And during this line of questioning about whether Scott had gone fishing or not, he would leave the room. In the 2 days since Lacey had gone missing, while family and friends were giving media interviews left and right, knowing that spreading the word was their biggest hope for a resolution, Scott was actively avoiding the media, opted out of speaking with them or being on camera. But a lead would fall into the investigators' laps the evening of the 26th. Apparently, Scott and Lacey's neighbors, the Medinas, who lived directly across the street, had gone out of town for a couple of days on Christmas Eve at around 10:30 a.m. The Tuesday morning, about an hour after Scott had said goodbye to his wife and went fishing. But when the Medinas returned home on Thursday, the 26th, at 4:30, they found that their door had been kicked in and that their house had been burglarized. The Medinas didn't call the police. They literally walked across the street to Scott and Lacey's, as there was still a huge police presence at the Petersons. Of course, detectives wondered if the robbery had something to do with Lacey's disappearance. Had she been abducted by the burglars? Or had they seen something and could be witnesses? Either way, they needed to find them. A neighbor would say that they saw a suspicious van parked outside the Medinas at around 10:30, the morning that Lacey went missing.
Do you believe there to be any possible connection, any indication that she may have come upon the people that were burglarizing that home?
Well, I think anything's possible, which was why that particular burglary was handed immediately to a detective. I know he's done extensive follow-up on it, and is still, a lot of it is still under investigation. But as I said before, just like looking into the sex offenders and starting to look at high-risk parolees that are in the area, they're all possibilities. And at this point, we've got to look at everything. So that is being looked at.
Detectives would develop two suspects, Stephen Todd and Donald Pierce, who at first denied their involvement in the robbery. But they sang a different tune when they found out that that burglary was the least of their worries, that they were being looked at as possible kidnappers of a missing pregnant woman. Right away, Todd and Pierce would come clean, even returning the items that they had stolen from the Medinas. They wanted to make it clear that they had robbed the house, but they had nothing to do with Lacey's disappearance and that they hadn't witnessed anything on the day she went missing. They would tell detectives that they broke into the Medinas on the 27th, so 3 days after Lacey went missing. But this was a problem, because the Medinas had come back at 4:30 p.m. on the 26th. There was no way that they could have burglarized their home on the 27th, which begged the question, was this proof that they knew something more or were involved in Lacey's disappearance? Or was it that they just got their dates wrong? Both suspects would take a polygraph and be cleared, and their family would give them alibis for the day that Lacey had disappeared. And after speaking more with the suspects, investigators would pinpoint the time of the burglary between 3:30 and 6:30 on the 26th. They would come out publicly saying that the burglary didn't have anything to do with Lacey's disappearance. But this didn't quite make sense, because if you think about it, on the date of the 26th, the Peterson home was crawling with cops, reporters, neighbors, friends, and family. A home across the street from all that activity would be the last place that you'd want to rob. On the night of the 26th, Detective Brocchini tells Scott that they want to do a more thorough search of the house, their vehicles, and also computers. Then they went back into the shop. They want to take a look at his boat. And with a search warrant in hand, they do just that. Because investigators were finding it odd that Scott had bought his boat on December 9th and didn't tell anyone about it. Then he buys a 2-day fishing license on the 20th. And in his search history on his computer, it shows him researching the tides of the bay, where he actually went fishing that day on December 24th, seemingly on a whim because he said it was too cold to golf. During the search of Scott's boat, they would find his homemade anchor. He said he'd only made one. Basically, it looks like he filled a little bucket with cement and placed a piece of bent rebar in the center, which is where you would tie a rope. So if you throw the anchor to fish, you can pull it back up again. Inside the boat, they would find the homemade anchor, but there was no rope attached to that piece of rebar. And they also found evidence that Scott had made more than one homemade anchor in the warehouse. So, if that were true, where were the other anchors? And police found something else in the boat. Under one of the seats, a pair of pliers, and that clamped within the teeth, there was a single black hair. On December 28th, 4 days after Lacey went missing, a scent dog was presented with Lacey's sunglasses. At the marina where Scott said he went fishing, the dog would alert to Lacey's scent along a path that led out onto a dock and ended at the water. Despite the chief of police being tight-lipped about whether or not Scott had gone fishing the day his wife disappeared, law enforcement searching the marina was like chum in the water in an already media frenzy. One could infer that Scott Peterson was their prime suspect. He was the one closest to Lacey, and a shocking but true horrific statistic that homicide is the #1 cause of death in pregnant women. But there was no physical evidence tying Scott to Lacey's disappearance, and there was no body. On the 6th day, December 30th, something would come out of all that media coverage that would change everything. Next time on part 2 of Murders in Modesto.
First of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002. I was introduced to him. I was told he was unmarried. Scott told me he was not married. We did have a romantic relationship. When I discovered he was involved in the Lacey Peterson disappearance case, I immediately contacted the Modesto Police Department.
Before I let you go, I wanted to remind you to stick around for our bonus episode up next. Here, my co-host Brandon Morgan and I will discuss the case in more detail. And one more thing, if you have a minute, rate and review the show. Tell a friend about Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for listening. From Cloud 10, Criminal Mischief is a pie-in-the-sky production recorded in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We're produced by Brandon Morgan and myself. Music by Soundstripe. I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host.